Hey there, so it's January 10th at just about 8:45 in the morning. You're watching Confronting Conservatives. I'm Barry P. Cook, and once again, I have recently been confronting conservatives, which I mostly do on the Twitter, and you can join me on Twitter. My handle is on the screen there to confront them with me. But I've been confronting them about a number of things, but right now I want to talk about the Texas Taqueria shooting. Now, I did a video on that the other day, and, it was being talked about then, and conservatives were saying dumb shit. So I was confronting them, and I explained why in that video. But it's ongoing, the situation, because, they hadn't talked to the guy, the cops, at the time that I made the video. And they now have, apparently. And the good news is that the case has been referred to a grand jury, which means they're going to look at indicting this guy and charging him with a crime. And I think that's a good thing because, as I said in my other video, my original video, I think, if he had to shoot him to eliminate the threat, fine, but he went way past that and may have, in the end, with the final shot, killed a guy who was at that point still alive, just before he pulled the final trigger there, who should have been left alive, and who should have had 911 called for him, and who should have had a chance at least to survive the injuries, so that he could then stand trial for what he did. Because the death penalty is not the punishment prescribed by law for robbery. And we can't have people going around and taking the law into their own hands excessively. Cops aren't allowed to use excessive force. Civilians shouldn't be allowed to use excessive force. So I hope this guy is in fact indicted and goes on trial. And I hope he's convicted. The crazy thing, of course, is that because all these news channels want to try to say the most they can about this situation, they sometimes will talk to attorneys and get their expert opinion. I've seen a couple of these news stories on the situation where they've talked to lawyers. And one of these news stations showed both the opinion of a defense attorney and a prosecuting attorney. And the defense attorney, of course, said, "Oh, clear-cut case of self-defense, and he's no charges. It's completely fine." And defense attorney is going to defend, right? So that's normal. But then they talked to the prosecutor and a prosecutor, I should say, and this prosecutor said basically the same thing: citizens have a right to self-defense, but the key phrase they uttered was "until the threat is ended." And that's what's at hand here. Nobody questions the fact that he had a right to shoot this guy. The issue is, at what point was the threat ended? At what point would a reasonable person understand that the threat was ended and be required by law to stop using deadly force? And in my estimation, the threat was ended, if not before this, as soon as the guy had the shooter's fake gun and couldn't possibly have thought he was still going to use it. And, people are going to say, "Oh, well, he could have had another weapon." He's down on the ground. You can hold your gun on him and check him for weapons or tell him don't move. And then if he appears to move in a threatening way, you can legally shoot him again. But that's not what happened. The threat was over. The shooter waited a few seconds and then shot this guy in the head. You can't do that. The crazy thing is that another news channel talked to a defense attorney who came right out and said, in a way that I think was kind of signaling to the shooter, in case he was watching, that he should listen closely, because she said, the shooter would have to say that they were still in fear for their life when they fired those subsequent shots. Basically, telling him, wink, wink, nod, nod, "Hey, if you're watching this, just say you were still afraid for your life, and you might have a better chance of getting away with it." which is just insane to me. And, you know, it sucks because I don't think, things being as they are in Texas, that the Attorney General is going to have any kind of particular hard-on to prosecute this case. So what I hope happens is that the guy's family pressures them to prosecute on the idea that, okay, yeah, he robbed a bunch of people, but that doesn't carry the death penalty under the law. And, okay, you had to take him down to eliminate the threat, but you didn't have to kill my son, brother, cousin, nephew, grandson, baby's father, husband, etc. with those extra shots, or that last shot. You should have called 911, and my loved one should still be alive if in jail, and that the Attorney General hears them and prosecutes. That's what I hope happens. That's what should happen. So, yeah. So these conservatives that say otherwise are crazy. And believe me, they're saying otherwise. They're saying it's completely okay that he killed this guy. Well, it's not. But I guess that's all I wanted to say about that for now. This is a developing story, so I'll be back if there's any more to say, if there are more developments. You've been watching Confronting Conservatives. I'm Barry P. Cook.